Good morning, everyone. We're just allowing some more people to join. I'll be sharing my screen momentarily. Just wanted to say apologies for yesterday because I understand some of you were unable to gain access. We are going to be recording today's session as well, so we will be able to share that with anyone that needs it after the session. Any questions that anyone may have, if you could please pop it in the chat. We'll do our very best to get through them at the end. I've already got a couple of questions that people have sent in prior to the session, so I'll be able to run through that. I've obviously got you all on mute and the camera's off for now, just so hopefully everyone can hear me okay. What I'll do is start sharing my screen, and then we can make a start. It should take no more than sort of 15 minutes at maximum to go through this, and I will I'll take any questions at the end. Thank you very much. Okay. Hopefully you can all see my screen. But yeah, first of all, welcome. Haven't done a webinar for quite some time since the furlough scheme and some previous changes to right to work. So yeah, welcome to our session. I'm going to try and keep it as light as possible. It's not the most interesting of subjects. I appreciate that, but really just want to run through some introductions with you. We'll have a look at changes to right to work. We often get questions around non-UK workers as they sometimes are more difficult to manage. We'll have a chat through the UK and Irish workers because there's a special arrangement for Irish nationals. We're going to have a really quick chat about how we deal with right to work at Liquid Friday, as many of you are our clients, and how we can support you moving forward, and then I can answer any questions. So it really, as I say, it's not a particularly long webinar, but it will take sort of 10 to 15 minutes. A little about me and Liquid Friday. We're FCSA accredited provider of PAYE, CIS and other agency support services. We support thousands of contractors and agencies and have recently broken through the 100,000 mark since 2006. We're an REC business partner as well, so we often help out the REC with any specialist kind of advice that they may need. We have recently launched in the last 2 years our recruitment specialist invoice finance facility, which is called Liquid Link. It is exclusive to the recruitment industry and is powered by the people here at Liquid Friday. And ultimately, as many of you know, we've always placed customer service and knowledge and being the expert at the heart of everything that we do. As of today, I'm now the Chief Operating Officer of Liquid Friday, and I've got sort of 10 years of experience here. Prior to that, I worked in DWP and also sat on the board of the FCSA for 4 years. So what has changed? In effect, measures were put in place back in 2020 to allow right to work checks to be completed via video call and for scans or photos of documents to be accepted rather than originals. It was purely there to make it easier for employers to recruit whilst keeping social distancing rules in place. Easements were removed officially from the 1st of October. And the rules were reverted back to prior rules. It's really important to remember that if you don't have what they call a statutory excuse, like if you haven't completed a relevant right to work check, you are potentially up for a penalty of £20,000 per employee for getting it wrong. Obviously, it's something we all try to avoid, but statutory excuse is really there to make sure that you have done everything reasonably possible to confirm that the worker or the employee has right to work in the UK. So what has changed? So there are now 3 ways that you can conduct a right to work check. We've still got the original face-to-face manual check with original documents. It's obviously the preferred method from HMRC, but we understand, and particularly in our industry, not practical. You can use the Home Office's online check-in service, which is the ECS, but that's not available to UK workers, for example. Or you can now use the new third method, which is using an identity service provider, or an IDSP. So just to run through all the processes for non-UK, which is where lots of the question come from. BRP or biometric cards can be used, but where somebody has one of these, or the new Frontier worker permit, the employer needs to perform an online check. So you do that by asking the employee for their share code. So each non-UK or non-Irish worker will have a share code that they can provide to you. Once you have that, all you need to do is enter that into the Home Office systems. And it will then provide you with an outcome. So it also applies to anyone with something called an e-visa, which can be someone who has EU settled status or pre-settled status, or anybody who's applied for UK immigration permission using the UK Immigration ID Check app. So there's lots of people you can use this for, but obtaining that share code will enable you to make those right to work checks. So moving on, what's changed? So for anyone not eligible for the online check, you can use an IDSP. So an IDSP is somebody that the Home Office has deemed to be an entity that has passed sort of qualifications and checks with the Home Office, and there are a list of relatively few, I would say, IDSPs. So it's relatively new. It's been around since April 2022. The legislation was introduced to allow IDSPs to complete a right to work check using IDVT, which is identity document validation technology. There is a cost involved for each digital check, but this is a useful service, particularly in the recruitment sector and umbrella and smaller businesses, or situations where it's really difficult to carry out the manual check. So, in theory, right to work legislation does only apply to workers that you are employing directly. For anyone working via an umbrella company or Liquid Friday, we are responsible for undertaking that right to work check. Our team is very experienced in this, so we've been able to help lots of our recruitment agency partners in this particular area. But checks are undertaken here by a dedicated compliance team. So that compliance team is separate to any other team. It doesn't have any incentives for converting or passing anyone through to payroll. It is purely there to protect the business. So our compliance team gives total peace of mind for me and therefore my clients. When a contractor from an EU country applies to join Liquid Friday, there is an option to select their immigration status on our online application, which we've found to be extremely useful. They'll then be directed to either indicate a share code or upload a copy of their document, and a robust check is then undertaken to ensure the worker has the right to work in the UK. However, we do need to be aware for recruitment agencies of the agency conduct regulations that require a similar ID check to take place. And this is a separate requirement from right to work. So whilst the umbrella company has the obligation to complete the right to work, we can't, in theory, satisfy your obligation as an agency in the conduct regulations. We will obviously share data, share information, and assist, but in theory, you must undertake an ID check as well. So what support can we give with right to work? Well, we've partnered with fantastic IDSP providers We've already been utilising a fantastic service with Credus. In the meantime, we have been partnering with another provider. Pay360 are powered by Capita, and they have partnered with Huyu. It's an exclusive arrangement that I can share with you guys. That means you will gain access to the same pricing schedule that Liquid Friday has negotiated, which beats everything that I've seen out on the market. If you do want to talk to me privately, because everyone's got their own reasons for using or maybe not want to discuss it in the chat, just contact me after. My details will be on screen, and we can talk about how Pay360 can help, and I can always broker an introduction so you get that Liquid Friday deal basically. So that brings us to the end of the update. We will obviously share this video. We'll share any questions that arise. I have already seen that there are 3 questions that came through before the session, which I'll run through now. So we got asked, do you need to do a right to work check on the self-employed? Self-employed people, it is a grey area. For us, we will always undertake a right to work check for the self-employed, but we are getting, more and more requests for, regardless of engagement type, to undertake that. But once again, they're Liquid Friday workers. There'll be Liquid Friday subcontractors, so we will undertake that check on your behalf from a right to work perspective. And then we had quite a few questions around IDSPs, which is natural where it's new. What we've done is we've consolidated those into sort of 2 questions that sort of seem to be the theme, which is one, how does an IDSP check in the actual ID in practice? So broadly, the IDSPs that we've worked with and we've partnered with, they all work in the same way. The individual is sent a link, normally from the employer, so from Liquid Friday, which can be via SMS or an email, and they will upload a copy of their passport and then record sort of a selfie via their app or their portal. The IDSP then returns an output back to the employer and the worker that confirms the authenticity of the document and gives us that sort of statutory excuse to then engage them as an employee or as a worker of Liquid Friday. And then the big question is, how much does it cost? Well, with the actual arrangement that we have with Pay360, who are on the government list of IDSPs, it is going to be less than £1 per check. It will depend slightly on your volumes, obviously, but if you do want to contact me directly afterwards, I'm more than happy to share any other sort of information that you might have or that I have about it. But in the meantime, unless there's any other questions, or I believe there are, 1 second. Cool. So if a direct PAYE had their right to work verified by the client and they are working for on our behalf, is that acceptable? It will come down to what they obviously refer to as a commercial choice for you. It doesn't in theory give you statutory excuse if you're using somebody else's IDSP output. But ultimately, you're kind of the reason for statutory excuse is you're doing everything you can to exhaust the possibility of him not being a legal worker. So if you believe commercially that yes, that's sufficient, then that's fine. But if you look at the letter of the law, you should be doing your own. But ultimately, it's a commercial decision. We're all businesses and have the right to make that decision.